Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to talk about Azure Logic Apps. It's an interesting service available in Azure where we have low code, no code capability to build a workflow connecting with various different other Azure services or third party APIs. My name is Riju and I'm a cloud solution architect reporting to Microsoft UK. Here is my Twitter handle. Now, what is Logic App? So I extracted this information from the official documentation of Microsoft, and it says that it is a cloud platform where you can create and run automated workflows with little to no code. By using the visual designer and selecting the pre-built operations, you can quickly build a workflow that integrates and manages your apps, data, services, and systems. So it is basically an workload built on Azure. You can use the designer available in Azure portal. You can even use the Visual Studio Code to design it offline and then connect with various different other things to build a single flow of service. So let's see how that looks like. Now, before that, I want to highlight a couple of the features we have here. First of all, it is low code, no code. So you don't need to be a developer to build a workflow. Even if you have not learned any of the programming languages, have not worked on any of them, you can still build a logical workflow which is required for your business. So it is not required. It is not a mandatory option. If you know coding, you can probably write a simple function to manipulate the data and then call the function in the workflow. If you have a developer to collaborate with, you can ask that developer to build that function for you and then integrate that in the logic app workflow. It is triggered, which means that you can have a triggered option whether email is coming to the mailbox, if somebody is typing in the Teams channels, etc. You can actually select. So we'll see what are the triggers we have available there. And then we have connectors. Connectors are important, which are basically nothing but an API available for you to quickly consume to connect to various different sources. So we have connectors for databases, SAP, things like that, which is not part of, let's say, your own system. Maybe you want to interact with something which is on premises. How do you connect that thing into the Logic App workflow to validate certain activity? And then you can design it in the portal. So Azure portal gives you a very rich designer capability. Apart from that, you have that Visual Studio Code. So let's see a demo how that Logic app really works. It is a fairly simple way, and you will understand that when I start sharing my presentation. So let me close this, open it in the portal. So I have my Azure portal. I'm logged in here. So let me go here and create a Logic app. So I'm right now in a resource group which I've created for this demo, and to create a Logic app, so you say Logic apps. Now you can see that there are multiple different Logic apps available, right? So it might be confusing for the beginner if you are getting so many options. Don't search here, search here. Otherwise, this is the Logic app you will be selecting, okay? So, but I'll show you the other option, which is Logic apps. Okay, if you select the logic apps and you see that logic app, so I can go ahead and create a logic app, and I say create a logic app, and I can go to the home, go here, select the thing, and create a logic app in this resource group by, and create it. Okay, it's the same thing, but you need to give a name. So awg demo is it. Okay, and it should be unique across all Azure subscriptions, not just yours, but everyone else's. And Logic App can be published as a workflow or as a Docker container. So if you choose a Docker container, this will be different, but we'll go with the workflow option. So we'll see that It is going to get deployed in central US. That's absolutely fine. And then it's saying that not finding your app service plan, try different regions, select your app service environment. And then I'm not going to select the standard, but I will select the consumption, right? So this is best for, let's say, entry level, pay only as much as your workflow is. Standard is something like an enterprise level, so you need a secure set of infrastructure for your Logic app, dedicated, always available, so you go with that, right? But consumption is something good for application. It's also cheaper. We need zone redundancy. No, it's not required. I'll go with this next option, tag and review and create, and that's going to share after the validation whether I will be able to create it or not. And I say create it. Now, what happens when this Logic app gets created? It gives you a designer in this portal itself. You can also connect this Logic app from your Visual Studio Code, and that gives you also a designer. So the deployment of the Logic app is happening at this point in time. You can see the progress in the deployment window. Once this is deployed, it will share that it's done, and then go to the resources. Will take you to that designer view of the Logic apps. So that's the designer I was referring to. Currently, there is nothing, so you will find a clean slate, but you can bring in all the components, which typically is like a workflow. If you have created or drawn a flowchart diagram for your application, for the solution you are working with, it looks like a flowchart diagram when you start putting things into places. So it comes step by step. You can run a loop. You can go in a tree option. If this yes, if that no, and then you do two different things after an action. So you can actually build that. So the design is getting popped up. It should not take that long, but let me just refresh my browser. Maybe the browser is a bit slow here with the internet connection I'm using, but it is not should not take such a long time. So this is the designer. Now you see here, I was telling that you have a trigger option available. So that's when you need to start with. So these are the available triggers you have. You have, when you choose not to have any trigger, you would generally select something like an HTTP request. So essentially it means that you build a logic app, you only call the logic app, then only the logic app is triggered. So you have you get a URL, and that URL is being called by your application or your automation, and then the logic app starts reacting to that call. So it's more of a on-demand call. If you choose other things like when a message is received on a service bus queue, or when a new tweet is posted, when an event grid resource event occurs, when a new file is uploaded in the OneDrive, or there is an email in the Outlook.com, something like that, you essentially go ahead and tell Logic App that Logic App, you be there, monitor my mailbox. Whenever there is a new mail coming in, just trigger. So it generally is a good use case in the case of support mailbox. Imagine you have a support mailbox for your solution, and end user is dropping an email. As soon as you get the email in that generic mailbox, your Logic apps triggers and then puts it into a backend ticketing system, generates a ticket ID and sends it back to the end user with a confirmation that your mail is received. Here hence is the ticket number. We are yet to allocate an engineer to work on this ticket. So something like that can be automated. You don't need to be there present to create the ticket, right? So I can choose this tweet option, right? So, and I will show you what all things it can do. So if I say sign in, then Twitter is something we need to sign in. So I will say the connection name, tweet, and then I will go ahead and log in. So let me log in. So there's a pop-up window in my second screen. So I'm gonna just log in here to um, to validate. So this is the connection you build with the connector, because it's an external system and it doesn't have the single sign-on capability which you are using for Azure. Hence, you need to do that signing. Once the sign-in is successful, right, you basically can go ahead and do that, right? So let me just type that. me try one more time. If it doesn't work, we'll go with the HTTP option. Now it's sign in. You can see that it's gonna go ahead and say that yes, there's a green checkbox, and you can see that the connection is successful, and I say continue. So what essentially it allows me to do is that it allows me to define some additional information about this Twitter connector. It asks me whether I need to review a specific text into the Twitter. So imagine somebody is tweeting. Now, when you use Twitter, right, people use a lot of Twitter handles, we call them, right? So you know that there are a couple of handles which can have a lot of information. There are hot topics happening today in the world. So when you say twitter.com and then you go into the Twitter portal after you log in, you see a lot of things happening. So one of the handles you can think of, like, people are using maybe something which is of your interest, let's say on Azure, right? So I use handle for my daily Twitter, that is my Twitter um, hashtag. And if you see here, what I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to check this Twitter on every 15 seconds, maybe. Let me put 15 seconds, and then you can add additional parameter. And whenever somebody tweets with this, whenever somebody tweets with that, I come and do a next action. And this is where you can either, let's say, modify or do something. Maybe you want to read the tweet and put it in a backend database. You can do that. You can even send an email. So if I choose this email thing, right? So I'll say email, and you'll find an email connector available in this list of connectors, which allows you to choose, let's say, either an Office 365 email or any of that sort of email. Right, let me just show you all the email options you have, right? So there are many, many connectors available which can help you probably do the email. So they probably may not be what we understand as email, but let's see that there is an Office 365 Outlook mailbox, which allow you to send an email, right? And then in that connector, you have a couple of actions you can do. You see here, when you want to send an email, you just type with this, and you see that there are option of send an email, right? So if you send an email, it again asking me to log in the mailbox. So I will do the login. There is a pop-up which has come up, and then I choose the login ID and password and approve. And then you see that in the Logic Apps, it's gonna go ahead and approves that, saying that yes, you are good to have an authority to send an email from this email address. So that's what it essentially means. And then maybe I want to send it to a specific email address. Let's see, does it exist? Let me quickly verify if I have that account active in my thing. So let me just go ahead and check that. Yeah, so that there is no S, so I just wanted to verify that. Raju Tech Talk, so that's the email address, correct email address. And then I have saying that new tweet. You can actually make this subject line even dynamic, right? So you can say that new tweet from who the sender is. So let's say I want to say tweet by. So that's a variable coming from the previous action. So if you have a couple of actions before this logic apps, you can think of like you can get the list of all the values coming in from those data, and then you can use them in the later part of the actions. You can even have a body, right? And then say I in the body, I want to add a dynamic content. That content is basically the tweet text, right? So text, that is the tweet text. So I'll select this, and then in importance normal, no parameter, and then I'm fine. So I can make it simple. I wanted to say that what I essentially mean is that I'm trying to make this a very simple workflow. Somebody is tweeting in the Twitter, and then I'm just going to send you an email. Now, what I essentially need to do is that uh, I am going to build a Twitter. So let me give a moment so that I can log into the Twitter, and then I post a tweet. Okay, so test hash. Gosh. So I just posted a tweet from my other window, and essentially you will, I can just say run the trigger, and I go successfully check the trigger, right? I go to this, and you can see that there is a log which is succeeded, and that log will show you the historical execution. And when a new tweet is posted, if I can click here, and it says that new tweet is test wcosh. Okay, and then you go to the next step, and it says that it is also successful. That means it could send an email with this. I would like to share my Gmail ID, which basically received that email. So let me pull that up. Review tech doc Gmail tweet should be there, but otherwise I should have that in the send box. So let me check in the send items, that mail which was sent from my mailbox. So you can see that this email was sent to this guy. This is from the sent item of the Office 365 account I'm using. But if I open this account, I should also be able to see if this is correct one, right? That email has been sent to this account, right? So this is actually happening on the aspect of my logic app workflow, right? So with this, I want to thank, and we can do a lot of magic using Logic App. It has an enormous opportunity for all of us to really play around, think our use case, and implement. Hope you enjoyed and got an idea about how Logic App can be helpful. And see you in my next session on Azure PaaS. Have a great day.